Oh my god. This frame looks freaking terrible. I look awful. I don't know what the deal is, cause I swear I'm like a handsome man in real life, but whenever I get in front of this fucking camera, I look like a fucking monster. Jesus. And you know what? I went to school for like audio visual and like multimedia and shit, and I have a creative writing degree, completely unrelated, but it's like, what? And then I stand in front of this thing and I just look like an ugly shut. It's fucking... I should have a better frame, but I don't. Anyway, today we're talking about Marvex. So, think about this. What if Superman was a robot? Well, today I have an interesting character to show you. He is a Marvel Comics original, first appearing in Daring Mystery Comics number 3, and then 4, and also 5, for a total of 3 stories. His name is Marvex the Super Robot, and we are going to learn all about him today. So, who is Marvex and why am I connecting him to Superman? Well, no reason really, just to compel people to watch this video. It's not even the same company as Superman, but as far as the narrative is concerned, there's like a couple parallels that I think you might find compelling, and I want to point them out because, well, they're at least partially satisfying. But first, a little bit about Marvex. He is a super robot, which is a robot with superpowers. His body is made of metal and operates off of some kind of like advanced mechanisms that we don't quite understand and are never really explained. However, we do know for sure that his body is made out of something called fabristeel, like fabric plus steel, fabristeel, which is a malleable metal that is super tough but still has the ability to bend and contort like skin. This is how Marvex is able to move his body. Because of his advanced scientific body, Marvex has a list of superpowers, which is where the parallels with Superman begin. First of all, he has Superman's entire basic power set: super strength, super speed, the ability to leap tall buildings in a single bound, and also it's worth noting that he has a computer brain, which is capable of operating computers, which weren't really around at the time, so it's kind of pointless. He uses it to manipulate a radio once, but I don't know. I guess that just means he can effectively communicate through radio waves just by thinking, I guess. Finally, we have the origin of Marvex, in which he is built by an advanced race of aliens from an alternate dimension. It's the 5th dimension, to be exact, the very same 5th dimension once visited by the Fantastic Four. It's here where an advanced race of beings lives. They are brilliant scientists, but they are not very kind. They're not good at all. They decide they want to make robotic slaves to serve them and choose to model these robots off of the lesser human beings because human bodies are excellent for completing work. The prototype for these new robot slaves happens to be Marvex. However, one thing that they didn't count on is that Marvex actually has a desire for freedom. It's unclear what malfunction happened here or how Marvex was granted his sentience, but it's clear that he does not want to spend his life as a slave. So he decides to smash up the lab and make his escape. Amazingly, during his escape, the lab explodes, sending Marvex spiraling through dimensions, and he just happens to crash land on Earth, where he meets this old man. This old man brings Marvex to the city and gives him some money for clothes because, let's be honest here, Marvex kind of stands out. Next, Marvex comes across an apartment fire. He finds a woman and her father. With his fabristeel body, he leaps up and rescues her. It turns out her father is a scientist working on some kind of military project. The fire was started by international spies. Apparently, they stole some scientific research, so Marvex vows to bring the saboteurs to justice. This is where he uses his super speed to catch up to the fleeing spies and rips the top off of their car. Needless to say, they stop their car. Now that the spies are captured, Marvex interrogates them to find their boss. Needless to say, they give up their boss. Now, Marvex corners the boss, but unfortunately the boss has a gun. But fortunately, Marvex is literally obviously made of metal and the bullets just bounce off of him. He makes short work of the boss and retrieves the stolen scientific research, returning the research to the scientist and his daughter, except the scientist is now dead and his daughter is left to accept the responsibility of his work. Her name, by the way, is Clara Crandall. And she is Marvex's analog for Lois Lane. She will pop up occasionally in the next 2 stories, but her relationship is reversed. In Superman comics, it's Lois Lane who is in love with Superman, but he denies her because secretly he is Clark Kent. In Marvex, it's Clara Crandall, and she is in love with Marvex, but he denies her ironically and simply because he's a robot. And that means he lacks the ability to love her, if you know what I mean. In the next issue, something very interesting happens. Marvex finds himself caught in the midst of a conspiracy. These thugs are planning a prison break, but Marvex is on their case, so they pin him inside of a net and drag him along the back of their vehicle, which is really one of the only ways that you can disable Marvex. You know, when you think about it, Marvex is disabled just long enough for them to dump him in the river, which is portrayed as being a big weakness for Marvex, as if water is going to destroy his steel body in some way, but it doesn't. He escapes the net and disables their ship. Unfortunately, Marvex spent so much time disabled in the water that he missed the prison break. It's total chaos inside the prison as the inmates tear into each other. The guards are instantly overwhelmed, and the legendary gangster known as Spike Green, the man who orchestrated the riot, is making his escape from the prison. Marvex arrives and does battle with the dastardly criminal mastermind, but the nefarious Spike Green is somehow able to knock out Marvex with nothing more than a mere stick of wood, which he smashes over his head. I suppose this short circuits Marvex just long enough to allow the inmates to strap him into this electric chair. For some reason, they make the assumption that the electric chair will shock and destroy Marvex's brain. However, Marvex is actually made of metal, which grounds his body, making him effectively immune to the shocks. He escapes his confinement, and then he chases down Spike's gang. After the gang, now there's just Spike to take care of. The prison guards attempt to shoot Spike in the back. However, in a rare moment of compassion, Marvex uses his metal body to shield Spike from the bullets. With Spike brought to justice, the riot ends and everything goes back to normal. So now Marvex has some accomplishments under his belt. He has stopped a prison riot and captured one of the most dangerous criminals in the nation. The problem is that now everybody knows who he is. The cat's out of the bag here. There is a humanoid robot walking around and he has superpowers. So what do people do? Well, they do their best to try and set a trap for him. Specifically, I'm talking about a scientist named Dr. Nar. He catches wind of the exploits of Marvex the super robot through the newspaper, and he just happens to be an expert in robots, attempting to make life-sized robots of his own. However, his robotic creations are clumsy, so he sends Marvex a letter asking to meet in person so he can achieve Marvex's secrets. And surprisingly, Marvex just obliges the old man. Unfortunately, this turns out to be a trap, but he obliges him just the same. Marvex tries to put up a fight, but he is no match for the Doctor's magnet ray gun, which completely paralyzes his metal body. Now, it's not specifically stated what is going to happen here, but presumably the Doctor plans to strap Marvex to the table and dissect him to learn about the secrets of how he operates so that he can move those secrets into his creations. Fortunately, Marvex has the power we mentioned earlier to send radio messages with just his brain. This is where Clara Crandall enters the story once again. She helps Marvex by infiltrating the Doctor's laboratory and destroying the magnetic ray, which allows Marvex to finally be freed. This results in a wonderful fight in which Marvex squares off against an entire gang of robots. They appear to be strong, but they are still obsolete compared to the more advanced Marvex, so he wins the fight and escapes with Clara in tow. Unfortunately, these events have caused Dr. Nar to go insane. Having witnessed the destruction of his life's work, he decides to self-destruct his own lab, killing everybody inside. Marvex and Clara escape just in time to avoid the explosion. After that, I guess Marvex at some point stopped trusting in humans because he gave up on his life as a crime fighter. We wouldn't hear anything about the Suber robot for basically the rest of his life. My assumption is that he is off somewhere enjoying his life, the life that he was given, probably alone. Clara's definitely not there. It's funny because she hits on him a bunch, but he just keeps denying her because he's a robot. He just doesn't have those feelings. But in a rare twist for this show, we actually do know what happened to Marvex, but it is a very strange conclusion. We learn about it from a story in All Select Comics, the 70th anniversary special. It's supposed to be like a comedy story. I think it's subjective whether you're going to find this to be funny. At the very least, we can say that it's not taking itself seriously. So it's entirely up to you if you want to consider this to be canon. But regardless, here's the explanation as we're given. Basically, what happens is Marvex goes out one day and he is bored, and so he decides he is going to use his incredible mechanical brain to figure out simply what he wants to do next. There is no conflict in this story. There is no antagonist. There is just Marvex wandering aimlessly, which some people might find funny, but I feel like most won't. Well, actually, there is an antagonist in this story, sort of, because this guy's sandwich gets struck by lightning and turns into this villain called Ingrediento. But there's not a fight or anything. Marvex just tosses him into the sky and Ingrediento lands in France. I don't really know why. It comes off as really irreverent. So then Marvex has no idea what to do, so he just sits to think and he wants to figure it out. But he sits there for like 70 years trying to figure it out because he is a robot and he doesn't notice that there are like spiders spinning webs around him. So basically when he comes to, it's been 70 years and it's now the future and it's modern society with like cell phones and internet. And he just is like some kind of boomer and he just absolutely hates it. So then he just decides, you know what? I'm just going to go into space to get away from it all. And the comic closes with Marvex just floating through space aimlessly with no objects or goals. So, like, I get it. Like, not much of that made sense, but that is the comic. I swear. Look it up if you don't believe me. Even though I'll probably find some images for this video, it's just kind of unbelievable. But that is the case with these old characters. They don't really get any respect. They almost never get like a good send-off. Then again, on the other hand, at least we have some kind of answer as to what happened to this guy. If anybody asks, he's out there, floating through space, and at the very least, he looks content to be that way. So I guess, in a way, this is a happy ending. At least he got away from Clarabelle. Enough said. Anywho, that's all for this comic. If you like reading this comic with me and you want to read more comics with me, like this video and subscribe to this channel. And until next time, nerds, stay heroic.